call the meeting to order. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Speak now or forever hold your peace. No? Okay. Adoption of the previous minutes. Thank you, Casey, for doing such a good job on those minutes. That was a wide-ranging conversation. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Any comments?
Oh, can I comment before you approve it?
Yes, sorry. Yes.
I forgot to mention in all that tree planting that we did have students from SDSS help plant on the Friday with the ISON employees. So I forgot to mention that students did help them plant.
Good. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. A motion? Was it Sammy? You moved to a seconder?
Yeah.
Emily Skelding, thank you. Okay. Excuse me, let's move on to updates from the working groups. Let's start with ecological. Vanny or Craig?
Are you guys white quarters or dark quarters?
Sure, I can update. Craig told me to update. So we heard from our staff, spraying in the TJ Dolan of the buckthorn was completed this week. They're going to go back in the spring to spray the rest, and there's money in the budget to do that, so there's no cost to the committee to finish that up. There was a lot there and a lot was removed. Also, we need to fix the rocks that slumped down along the south shore on the river on the Avon project. And we're just waiting for the water to be lowered. So I think, Craig, you're thinking going in next week or two to do that. And I think that's about it. And yeah.
Great, thank you. The water is really low in the river. That's in preparation for doing more work on the.
There's some, the city's doing some work as well, and that's why it's actually a bit lower than it usually is. But that'll suit us just fine. We can, that section that we're trying to do is a real difficult section, and it's quite steep. And so I'm glad it's down a bit. We're just waiting for it to freeze up now a bit so we don't make a real mess down there. But we hope to get that done before Christmas. If we don't, then we'll do it in January.
Okay. Sammy?
This is just out of interest. But I was wondering, like what you use to spray the buckthorn, does it have any like harmful effects on other, like on the ecosystems or anything else? Or like, does it get into the water or anything?
It's very targeted. It does not affect anything else.
They paint it on with a paintbrush. So it doesn't go anyplace else. And it's targeted to that particular species. So it's they used it a lot, and it's been very effective for that particular species.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There was somebody else had their hand up. Jody.
Thank you. Yeah, just an update on the TJ Dolan. I did hear that they're putting more wood chips down. It's been very mushy on the path, kind of flooded because it's so wet. So they're actually right now doing wood chips, filling it in. But an interesting spin-off, I don't know if you heard about this, Craig, that it was so somebody came in and started clearing some of the TJ Dolan. And if it's the same case that I'm thinking of, it turns out it's somebody who wants to make a fat bike trail that's off to the side. So just sort of an update on the other thing that they mentioned was that because the buckthorn and other invasive species are being cleared out, that there's sort of empty patches. And so people are like, hey, I could make a trail through there. So yeah, that's been a bit of a challenge. So if you have any fat bike friends, maybe we need to have some conversations with them about the TJ Dolan and preserving it as opposed to destroying. So I don't know if Craig wanted to talk about that, but.
Yeah, sure. I was going to bring this up later, but I saw those emails too, Jody. And yeah, I've been watching that over the last year down there, and you know, the fat bike trails, the side trails are getting more and more and more. And that's what fat bikes like. They like to get off the road and bushwhack. And so eventually you get the whole area crisscrossed with trails, and it's you will wipe out all the underbrush. And I guess I'm speaking from experience about this, that we're just talking to one of the members of our environmentally sensitive area team that manages the ESAs in London today about that issue. I said, what do you guys do? And they said, yeah, we had all these fat bike guys going in and going off trail and really destroying the native fauna that's under there. And they had to take extreme measures. Like they went around to every bike shop in London and talked to them and got all the bike shop owners on board and said, look, stick to the trail. And then what they had to do as well, and it just took manpower, unfortunately, is that they blocked those side trails off physically with, cut down the old dead buckthorn and piled it in there and just made it difficult for people to get through. And that did have an impact eventually, but it took manpower to do it and the will to do it as well. I don't know that you can do that down there or not. I saw Quinn's email and his kind of was referring to the area as well. It's multi-use. So what do you do? Okay, fine. But those fat bikes can sure make a mess in the off season. And I've seen what they do around Fanshawe. They rut everything up and they keep going sideways further and further. I guess it's an education thing, but they have to want to do it. But like you would think there would be interest from them in not wrecking it, because ultimately you are going to wreck the whole thing. What the fellow I talked to today, Dan Jones is his name, and he said he talked to members of the fat bike community and then said, okay, what do you guys want? Well, they want A, B, C, and D. And so he said, well, okay, look, we will build you that if you want ramps, if you want a side trail that's rated as a black diamond, we'll make you one, but stay on the trail. And that's what they did as well. And there was some success in that, but they had a lot more room to work with. And they had a lot more, cliffs and dangerous things to kill themselves on that they enjoy. So they were able to do that, but it's an ongoing issue. And I don't know where the city or the parks stand on it all. If you want a multi-use trail that satisfies everybody, then I guess we have to put up with it. I know Quinn was hoping that they would stay on the wood chips, but wood chips are boring for a fat bike. So I don't know. I'm not sure what to do. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I've been kind of wondering whether or not to bring it up to this committee or whether it's a committee thing or not. I don't know. But it will, you reckon everything under there. And I'm still thinking about it, I guess. I would like to do something, but I'm not quite sure what to do other than, I guess you start by hopefully education but something tells me you're not going to educate that guy with the chainsaw. So I don't know, or whether you just ban bikes from the TJ Dolan. Say, sorry, man, this is, or they're allowed from June to end of October, and then that's it. I don't know. It's an issue. That's my 2 cents.
Emily Skilding?
Yeah, just a comment. I know signage for like trails and stuff can be expensive, but and I'm not sure how it would apply to multi-use trails, but to put up signage saying, please stay on the trails, in general, without actually targeting one group. Is that an option for the TJ Dolan? Because there is a lot of off trailing in there to begin with people's dogs and different things too, that I'm sure are affecting the underbrush.
Hi, Anita, welcome. Jody?
I was going to mention that on the ATAC committee, the Active Transportation Committee, we are actually working on new signage for the TJ Dolan area. So that would be something I could take back to that, because it hasn't been designed yet. But we are working on the project actively. So signage, but I guess then we have to decide what the sign's going to say. Stay on the trail would be a good first step for sure.
How many fat bike users are there?
I don't know, and when you're zooming along on your bike, are you gonna see a sign that says stay on the trail?
Yeah, and I asked Dan Jones about signage and he says it doesn't work. You're gonna get the guys that are, you're gonna get half of them are respectful and are worried and have the same maybe ethic that you do, and then the other half tell you to go pound salt. So it's that he said the signing did not work, unfortunately, but I still think it's worth a try to at least say, if from a due diligence standpoint, that just at least do it. Like, and the other thing I guess I was thinking about is that, well, you know, how many fat bikes are there? Like, you stand there for a day and then flag every fat bike that comes along and say, hey, you know, what do you think here? Can we work together? There's not that many of them, I don't think. So I don't know. It's not like London where there's whatever number the population is, but maybe it's something that we could approach the community on, the fat bike community on. I don't know. I guess I'm still kind of working through it.
But I mean, it is something that ATAC is also working on too. I mean, is this something that ATAC and E&E could work on together, or maybe in the new year? Okay. But I've only ever seen 2 guys on fat bikes in Wildwood and in TJ Dolan. There can't be that many of them.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Oh, Bonnie.
I just wanted to bring up that I know that there's trails around us and they had to actually shut them down, snowmobile trails, because of people not respecting the signs, and the farmers got fed up and they shut the trails down. I'm wondering, I'm assuming most people will come in off of John Street. There might be some that come in off of West Gore. I wonder if there was a sign there that mentions the multi-use trail could be stopped for bikes if you don't stay on the trail as the natural area is getting destroyed. Like, you know, actually explaining why it's important that they stay on the trails. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but.
Yeah, they did that in London. They actually created some flyers to hand out to these guys that had maps on them and say, here's the trail, stay on it. And then bullet pointed your reasons why. Again, just kind of a due diligence thing, trying to give them as much rope as they can first before they shut them down. So things like that would be worth a try.
Did they end up shutting them down, did you say?
They ended up trying to shut them down, but they're a pretty persistent community.
Emily?
Yeah, just kind of a last comment from me on this too. I don't have a lot of knowledge about the fat bike community, but I do have family members that are like enjoy biking and have looked into trying to do fat biking in Wildwood. It seems like it's definitely like a community. So it sounds like London, the approach they did to go to the bike shops, although that might be more work, that community engagement piece might actually have a really large impact. Because I think there's only 2 bike shops here in town that rent out fat bikes for people to use too. So.
And Joel, that totally spoke. He's really good. Talk to him.
I wonder if we could get Mike to do some kind of press release about the fat bike community is affecting the TJ Dolan, and it may have to be looked at to shut it down if they don't stay on the trail. I wonder if our community awareness, like putting it on social media and having a news article about it.
I think
people are pretty passionate about keeping the TJ Dolan.
Okay, Emily?
Yeah, just from my experience with community engagement that I've done in like my professional career, I think maybe going to the shops first, and that as, you know, a down the road method would likely be best, as opposed to doing something like that would be publicly shaming, or I'm not sure how that could get interpreted, but.
Okay, Jody?
I would agree with Emily. I think we also probably need to have signs first saying stay on the trail, so that people have a heads up, right? We can't sort of crack down on them too quickly if we haven't actually asked them to do the thing we want them to do first. So yeah, I think education and maybe adding that to the signage. And I'll definitely take that back to ATAC to work on incorporating some kind of messaging into the signage.
Great.
Is that type of bike bought at Canadian Tire too, or just the bike shop? Like a specialty bike type thing?
They're super expensive. That's all I know. Like, I think a lot of people rent them before they commit to buying a bike.
Okay.
And I wouldn't imagine TJ Dolan Trail, if you're an avid like fat biker, would be the trail you would really want to go. It would be probably longer trails like Wildwood or something that you would ultimately want to go to.
Yeah, and they're popular in the winter too.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Jody, for taking it to ATAC. Okay, carbon reduction. Oh, sorry, Bonnie.
Sorry, I have to leave in about 2 minutes, but part of ecological, can I just talk to Mike's email about the 2 billion trees
Oh, yeah.
program?
Yeah.
So just to let you know, proposals were in May. Conservation Ontario is working with Forests Ontario for put in a big proposal, and it was just a scoping exercise from the federal government. I'm sure Nature Canada did the same thing. The Upper Thames also put in a separate proposal for expanding the tree power program into other communities and expanding it in Stratford, bigger than it already is. And so what's happening with these requests for proposals that will come out, what it's understood is that out of all those proposals, NRCan is going to ask some of those agencies that put proposals out for an RFP for more details. So that's how we understand will happen. So just to let you know, Mike, that was the process we were involved in.
Thank you.
So that's what's happening. And hopefully our forester said the original May proposals were 27 pages long. So then hopefully they read them and say, okay, can you come back with an actual money and whatever you need, and then we'll go from there.
So our submission was 27 pages?
The Upper Thames submission was
Good for
27
them.
pages.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations to whoever did
Yeah.
that.
And then again, Conservation Ontario is working with Forests Ontario on a bigger program. But again, there's lots of little intricacies of this program that haven't been ironed out.
Yeah, like getting trees in the ground.
Oh, or even getting trees.
Yeah.
Getting trees.
The other question, so she noted in the note to me that there was more coming out, another RFEOI in December, it sounds like, so that they're going to expand that. But she also wondered if the committee wanted, or anybody in Stratford wanted, some kind of advice from Nature Canada or anybody else. I didn't offer it that, but because I think it sounds like you guys are on top of this. So
Yeah,
I don't think we need to,
No.
but if you do need the help of this committee, by all means, if that helps the application.
So what I understand is, yeah, exactly. The RFP will be offered to those agencies that did the May proposals. That's how we understand it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Bonnie?
Have you heard, do you think because of all the flooding and fires that have happened in Canada, will there be a tree shortage? Like, will they sort of target areas that have lost so many trees before people that just want to make theirs more dense? Have you heard anything?
I haven't heard anything about that yet.
I mean, we've
And
had.
We just know our local nurseries
Yeah.
having a hard time keeping up with the demand.
And I wasn't sure, I forwarded the email to Quinn for information so that he knows it started, but do you know if Stratford did a proposal, or were they part of yours, or how did that work?
Yeah, I don't know if Stratford did or whether they were part of this whole big Forest Ontario, Conservation Ontario, because that was based on communities in the watersheds.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
Okay.
okay, sorry, I have to leave.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Happy
Have a
holidays.
good
Merry
Christmas, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Okay, thank
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on, Carbon Reduction Working Group. Emily Skelding is going to do the report today.
Thank you. I'm going to do the report, but I should acknowledge that Anna had a really large piece in organizing the webinar. So the Carbon Reduction Working Group had its last webinar of 2021 on November 18th. And it was a webinar focused on waste called The Ins, the Outs, and Getting to Zero. So we had Kate from the city provide an update from the city of Stratford, Francis Villeneuve to talk about the Blue Box with Blue Water Recycling Association, Chris Gillian from Storm Fisher to discuss the green bin, and Sammy presented as well about the efforts going on with the waste reduction for the takeout containers in the city. So altogether, we had 60 people in attendance, which was our highest attendance to date. And the webinar is available on the city's website. I should note too, we didn't talk in great detail about greenhouse gas savings or carbon reductions in the waste sector specifically, but there was a lot of questions and comments on just like how to improve it on a more hands-on level for how to properly sort your waste in the blue box and the green bin. So it was really helpful. It was a good webinar.
And there was a lot of talk about what's coming up with the province stepping in and producers being made responsible and how that transition is going to happen. A lot of information came out. I thought I would rewatch the webinar just to kind of understand all what's coming down the in the future in terms of waste and handling it. I thought those two men were really fantastic. It was a wonderfully informative webinar. Okay, thank you. Sammy, ICI?
Yeah, so ICI, we have seen a bit of, we're trying to kind of refocus, regather our thoughts to figure out where the group's going to lead, what our next main focus will be. We've sent out a form to figure out meeting times as well as topics, and now we're setting a date in the new year for our meeting to discuss projects. Recently, in the November Stratford Times edition, an article was published about the reusable containers. So if you want to check that out, feel free to head over to their articles. And yeah, the business is doing amazing. The containers, they're really doing great. So if over the holidays, if you want to order and get it in a reusable container, I encourage you to do so. And if anybody wants to join the ICI group or have any suggestions, please let me know.
Okay, thank you. I've certainly seen the flyers around town. They seem to be all over, which is great. Okay, thank you. Any comments, additions? All right, thanks very much. Moving on, update.
Emily had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Emily, I didn't see you. All
No,
right.
that's all right. It's just a quick question for Sammy. I know you had brought this up during our waste webinar about like potentially looking at compostable products for some of the restaurant businesses. Have you either like reached out to Storm Fisher and how you guys can maybe collaborate on that, or even considered like with your own school, like trying to trial some of these products through your compost cow?
Yeah, so compostables has been quite a topic. If you attended the webinar, you would have learned that compostables doesn't mean it can actually go through the system. So what kind of our focus was in the beginning was to help the restaurants who are already using compostables to see if they actually could be composted. So the Pulp sent in their cups. They reached out to Storm Fisher to see if the cups they were using were actually compostable. Same with Revel. Kate took some of her cups to see if they're compostable. And we did talk to Storm Fisher to say, like, is there certain brands that you can say are compostable or not? And they actually kind of hesitated to say specific brands because, again, it's so iffy with the system a lot of compostables like are similar to plastic and will be removed, even though other places they are accepted. So I think it's a bit more of a tricky topic for sure. And again, it's kind of working on that connection between the restaurants and Stormfisher so that restaurants that are looking at compostables have a direct contact to see if they can actually be composted before they make that move. But yeah, that one's a bit of a trickier topic.
I think he said the only thing compostable really, if we buy the bags that go in the bins, those they're lined and they are compostable. If you buy them at Canadian Tire or other hardware stores. Yeah, it's a problem. Well, there's TerraCycle. You can put things in TerraCycle. That's
I
what
thought he said they had to tear those bags all open.
Hmm?
Didn't he say they had to tear those bags open and try to pull some of them out?
I thought he said that the bags that you buy that have the compostable vegetable matter lining in them to put in your bin were fine to use, that they do.
Okay.
I think that's what he said.
Well, I
part
remember
of the
saying
reason-
something about some bags they had to rip open and
I think other
Mm.
bags, they do. I don't think other bags that say they're.
and I noticed he mentioned like anything that has fiber in it is definitely compostable.
Yeah, he was
Well,
talking
I
about
think egg cartons. Yeah, sorry, Jody.
talking about grocery store bags. I'm pretty sure he was talking,
Oh,
showing it was
that
like
would
Rose
make total sense.
bags and,
Yeah,
you know, the
that would make sense.
chairs or whatever. Those bags are not acceptable, and that's what they have to fish those out. But the ones that you buy as liners that are specifically for compost, those are fine.
Yeah. And then, I mean, egg cartons, I think you can put in. But
Yeah, they're fiber.
any other comments? Sammy?
Egg cartons can go in recyclable.
We kind of quick went on to ICI, but I just had a question about carbon reduction. The chart that you sent around, Anna, that you put together, first of all, it's amazing. Thank you for putting it together. But I was just wondering if carbon reduction was thinking about kind of assessing those or figuring out when to pass those motions, or if there were any like next steps that came along with that chart.
Well, those, as you know, I just took them out of E&E's own additions to the climate plan in January. So they're it's just taking all of those recommendations that E&E had put forward in any case through our own plan. So I'm hopeful that carbon reduction or E&E will want to act on those. Might be a good work plan. That's why I sent it around, thinking maybe it'd be something to look at in the new year. Emily.
Yeah, we've discussed this in our carbon reduction working group too. Like this year, we've been focusing a lot on webinars and kind of community engagement, but we do plan as like a group to champion and like bring forth like motions and some action just outside of just webinars as well. So in 2022, hopefully we can work towards putting to action a lot of those items that are listed in the chart that Anna sent out.
Yeah, I mean, some of them fall into ecological too, right? It covers quite a wide range, all of the recommendations. So. Okay, thank you. Moving on, I actually wasn't able to attend ATAC, but I spoke to the chair, and I believe what they did, they have a work plan themselves, a chart of what they've been doing and plans for going forward in the various areas they're working on: cycling, multi-use trails, pedestrian projects, wayfinding, mapping, and their report card, and then some other things such as the integrated transportation plan. So they just talked about their own work plan for moving ahead. I hope someone will enthusiastically take up the vice chair position and sit on ATAC. I found it really interesting to sit on it, and I think there are lots of things that might be done in collaboration between the two committees. Anything to add to that, Jody? From ATAC? Okay. Okay. Great. Well, we're moving right along here. Business arising from previous minutes. Land acknowledgement update. Jody, is there anything?
They're still working on it. Haven't heard anything new, so.
Just as a matter, oh, sorry, Tammy?
I was just wondering, I know staff are really busy and stuff, but is there a way we could like request an update or something just so that the community knows that a land acknowledgement is on the way or something so that it doesn't feel like there's no work being done on it?
Perhaps we could ask for our next meeting. We could ask somebody from the clerk's department to give us an update.
Let's do that. Can we do that?
Yeah, and that gives them a bit of a heads up, a little bit of inspiration to have something new to report.
That would be great. Okay. Can we just make that as a request, Casey? Doesn't need to be a motion or anything, does it?
I could also just send a request to the clerk and see if she can just email an update to start to, if you'd like.
That would be great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
okay, I'll send her that.
I do want to say that one nice thing happened after the webinar. Francis Veilleux was so moved by the land acknowledgement. He wanted a copy so he could use it in his company. So I was very pleased to hear that. It's very encouraging. Okay, is there any update, Jody or Bonnie, on the climate action plan in terms of the city moving forward? Nothing.
We don't start, our first budget meeting is December 14th all day. So we'll probably get our binders the Friday before that, and then we'll see what's in there. Hopefully the climate coordinator, both positions are there. We have no idea.
Okay. Is that a hand up, Emily?
Yeah, sorry, Amara's contract is coming up again, like soon, right? It's gonna be finished. Is that with like in the next month? Is that in 2021 that it's coming to an end?
We have no idea. Well, it is, but we have no idea. Like we brought it up before at council, Jody and I both have brought it up about doing something before the end of the year because her contract's going to be up.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it works because the contract of Rebecca, who was in the same position before her, I think it was up in February or something. So it's not on the year end, I don't think, but I'd have to double check about that. I just know that in the past, the contract was not at year end because we were kind of late. And that's why Rebecca ended up getting another position because we weren't fast enough to get it all underway. But yeah, definitely at the budget time, we're going to have, that's where we need to push to have that. And we, just as a side note about the budget, we've been told by staff that there are a lot of additional expenses, which it's going to be a difficult budget season and there's going to be cutting. And so, we're going to have to make some pretty good arguments, I think, to retain some of these new ideas.
Sammy?
Is there anything that E&E can do to like say to push and kind of hold strong that money can't be cut from the environment? Because like I'm not sure if there's anything that E&E can really do to like first of all make sure that money is put towards this and then it's not said like, oh, this year's really tight, let's leave it till 2023 or something like that. Just because I think, and the implementation plan really needs to be written so that we can start acting on it. I'm feeling definitely that it's a very slow process and I'm definitely feeling that. I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but so I was just wondering if there's anything we can do, pass a motion or anything to kind of make sure that that's a huge topic at the budget discussions.
I think they know that, and it was 100% endorsed by all city council and the mayor. So, and I'm expecting, I hope I'm not wrong, but that they're going to, that part of the reason the budget's so much higher, like they're looking at 7% right now, is that that maybe they are putting a lot of climate change initiatives in. I mean, the Britannia Street complex, the 27 units that they're planning to do, it was way over budget because of the fact we're building it to passive standard.
That's good. Jody, did you have your hand up?
I was going to respond to Sammy to say, I think we made a motion about hiring staff. So I would say probably the only other effective means would be write an email to all the counselors and tell them how important it is to you, and that, you know, you really are hoping that it's going to happen sooner than later. I think that would probably be the most effective method.
And do that before December 14th. Yeah, so do it now, yeah.
And we have been getting emails from quite a few people about the climate change, so.
Mike.
Speaking of council and budgets, one of the things that we recommended be done early this year was a look at requiring a passive standard for new builds in return for perhaps development charges or property taxes being lessened. And the undertaking was to make it a part of this year's budget or budget deliberations. Do we know what the status of that is?
Jody.
Yeah, so we looked into it. So this would be the green development standards. That's sort of that, how it's packaged. So all development would have to meet a certain level, standard level. And the thing that I found out, because I've been attending that climate caucus meetings, which are actually the federal Canadian municipalities got together and made this climate caucus for elected officials to work on climate issues. So this is a big topic that we were talking about. And you're not allowed to give reductions on certain things because it's seen as bonusing. So it's the answer is like, no, we can't do that. But you can develop standards and encourage them by adding certain incentives, which are a lot less powerful than reducing fees and other things. So in larger municipalities, they find that they can kind of give preference. We don't have a lot of developers here, so that preferential treatment thing doesn't really quite work as well in smaller municipalities. But definitely, as part of the climate action plan, when I made the motion, I also included in that had to have the green development standards as part of it. So it's kind of rolled into one. That's the piece that the planning department would work on, and that it would be part of our climate change overall plan, because I couldn't see how else to kind of get that. It needed to sort of attach to something. And that was the motion that we attached it to. So it's in there as part of the motion, so that we can come back and say, okay, yeah, this needs to be a specific piece to this plan that we need to see. So I hope that answers the question.
Well, sort of. I understood that there were some municipalities that had actually found a way to provide incentives, and we were going to look at that. But
yeah, they're not monetary incentives. There are certain things like exterior things to the building, like exterior design features that municipality does have control over that are outside of the building code. You can play with those, but actual discounts or anything to do with money or even speeding up, like you get your stuff approved faster. Right. Apparently that's bonusing.
What about, for example, reducing the number of parking spaces required?
Right, now that's a bylaw issue, so we can we can look at that as well. But that's in bylaws.
So that's not a building code issue. That's completely controllable by the city.
That's yeah, I'm pretty sure. Is that right, Bonnie? That's a municipal issue. The number of
I
parking
think
spaces.
so, because we just reduced the apartment buildings to 1.25 from 1.5.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a kind of a different focus, but yes, that's a municipal thing.
There's probably a provincial standard because, well, at least for accessibility, there's a provincial standard of 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20, goes up to 1,000 parking spots about. And I know we've got a part of our accessibility. We improved it in our, what do they call it? The facility design.
Yes, the design manual. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. No, and I was just going to mention that, Bonnie, that one of the things that the AAC was looking at is exploring a kind of tax incentive regime for accessible housing, and like you say, there's the same sort of barrier in terms of not being able to move to operate outside or legislate outside the exterior of the building, but there is there is a I can't remember exactly what the name of the provincial program is, but there's a provincial program that municipalities can sign on to, and it's a tax deferral program, and one of the conditions that that Oshawa has added to certain high density developments is that they have to include or incorporate standards from the facilities, from the accessible design manual in the interior units. So I don't know if I don't think it's specific to accessibility. I think if we had that sort of program in place, I think we could apply the same principles to green standards, but I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either, Jeff. Theirs is for heritage or accessibility, and you have to fill out a grant, and they have so much money a year that can be spent. And if, say, any of their units in the years ahead, if they got accepted, became not accessible, then they lose it. Like basically what happens is the first year you don't have to pay any taxes on it. And then the next year you only have to pay 10%, 20%. So in 10 years, you're back up to the 100%. So it gives them motivation to include accessibility when they're building. So that would be interesting to see. Jody,
and yet it's not a bonus because it's still being taxed. It's just the taxes are being deferred.
It's similar to our grant program in a way, except
yeah.
I think we give them interest-free loans or something when they're doing renovations downtown. But I wanted, Jody, if you're in one of these meetings, if you could ask about that. Did you hear about that? About the accessibility heritage grant from, is it Oshawa or Ottawa?
Oshawa.
Oh, Oshawa. Okay. No, I didn't hear about that. We did talk a lot about Whitby. Whitby has the green development standards for the environment and how that's all going. Because they're still a lot bigger than we are, but they're smaller than Toronto. So it's more applicable what they're doing. So yeah, if you want to look at an example of how it's done to the extent it can be done within the Ontario Building Code, then Whitby is a really good one to look at for the environment. But I didn't realize that there was grants available, which that would make a lot of sense.
I'll email you the information, Jody.
Okay.
Okay, Sammy? Sammy? I think you're on. Are you muted, Sammy?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just thinking if there are grants available, could we suggest that the city look at those? or city staff or something look into those?
Well, we know that there's accessibility ones, but I don't know if there's an environmental equivalent. But yeah, it'd be great if we could find something like that. I haven't heard about it, which makes me think it doesn't exist, but certainly something we could suggest.
So do we want to ask staff? Along with asking for the update on the land acknowledgement? Can we do that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of what question to ask exactly. So a grant program, similar to the accessibility grant program?
I did send that off to staff when I got the report. I sent it to Taylor, but.
Okay. So maybe it needs to be a.
Let me see if I can, I'm just looking in my email right now. Let me see if I can get the particular, if I could have the particular name of the program that Oshawa is taking advantage of, and we can inquire about that specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking we could like ask city staff to look into like grant programs like that, but for like environmental, like green standards. I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's, I mean, I don't think it's that it was the decision of the city to make it, of Oshawa to make it conditional on accessibility. I think there can be other, you know, there could be other conditions introduced to this process.
So we're talking about developing a grant program, a municipal grant program to encourage
it's not, it's a
green development or green.
It's a, yeah, well, it's a tax, it's a deferral program. Let me just
Tax
see.
incremental deferral program, they're called.
Okay. And you and reference Oshawa as a example, or Whitby, you suggested, Jody. So how do we move on to this? Just to ask, is it Taylor? Ask, is that infrastructure?
It's under the community improvement plan umbrella. That's the acronym.
So is that a motion we have to pass?
I'm
or
not
is
sure.
that-
Do we need a motion to ask staff or?
I don't think so. If we didn't need a formal motion for the land acknowledgement.
Yeah, it's not like that would go through council, right? To ask staff to look into something for us.
Yeah.
We can't direct staff to do anything, so it will have to go to council.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe it goes to ITS for this ITS subcommittee to discuss, because that's where we tend to make referrals. Then that would make a referral to staff to look into it. So maybe this motion goes to the ITS subcommittee.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Somebody want to? Okay, Sammy. Mike, are you? Do we have wording?
I think Jody had pretty good wording before.
Yeah, I wrote down look into developing a incremental tax deferral program to encourage green development.
Okay, so what do we say? Moved by Sammy, seconded by Mike. Great. Okay.
And we need to vote, Anna.
Oh, right. Darn. Okay, all in favor. Can see why. Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, thanks very much. Okay, moving on to another issue. Is there any update on the Trow Avenue development, which we also discussed at the last meeting. Any further news on that front? Jody or Bonnie?
The council has passed it, but I believe the council is going to ask them tough questions, at least at site plan.
We did get put in place a site plan approval that has to be approved by council. So, and it also, I don't know, but I've heard that the neighborhood group is possibly taking it to the land tribunal, or the next step possibly to then maybe get into mediation with the developer. But that would be between the neighbors and the developer. So I think that's where it's at right now.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? All right, moving on then, new business. Is there anything under new business? I had the trees under there, but we've covered that. Sammy?
This is kind of just quick going back to the climate action plan and budget discussions. I know Bonnie and Jody said there isn't anything energy environment can pass to encourage that, but I was just wondering if we can ask you, Jody and Bonnie, to make sure that it's a very important topic, and for energy environment to not let it slide.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I brought it up last year, and this year I've got a much stronger case because we've made motions that it's supposed to be moving this forward. So I definitely will be spending a lot of time talking about it.
Thank you. Well, maybe we can all commit to writing a letter or an email. I guess we can write an email to the mayor and all the councillors before December 14th.
And I guess
Encourage your friends to.
Our friends too, yes, getting our friends, but also to say as members of energy and environment, this is critical. Emily Skilding.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is like the appropriate section to bring this up, but as this is the last meeting and we do have members that their terms are expiring, can someone just like explain what the next process will be like, when we'll get new members and how that, and if there are members that wanted to be renewed, like, are they able to reapply or no once it's 2 years?
If people had to apply by October 22nd, you have to apply if your term's coming to an end. So, and new people will appear in January.
It comes to council December the 13th for approval. And then everybody will get letters that have been approved, and people that are no longer running will get a letter saying, thank you for your service. I think that's how they do it.
Yeah, I think E&E had 4 or 5 vacancies, so they'll be filled with reapplicants and new applicants. So.
Just to return to the Queen and Tro thing briefly, am I because I missed part of that discussion at the last meeting. The motion that E&E made about the parking lot and the access to charging stations and the environmental impact, at least in terms of the parking situation and the charging stations, that's applicable to a site plan discussion, right? So those things are still, the spirit of that motion, I guess, is still in play.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the motion of November 4th in the list. Yeah, and we also made the motion about the climate change coordinator on November 4th. Okay, is that it for new business? Oh, sorry, Craig.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be representing the Avon River Environmental Association on this committee. And I talked to our president, Alan Carr, today. So if I can just take a second, Alan, the group has been kind of dormant just with the COVID. We haven't been able to have any meetings and so on, but Alan has been active. He's been doing water sampling in the lake. We've do a routine of it in the fall and in the spring. And he sent me his results. And I just wanted to say that the results from this past fall that he sampled, their E. coli, and they were all below the 100 milligrams per liter, which is a good thing. That's the first time I've seen that in a long time. So whether that was just the conditions of the day or whether the geese had flown off to a cornfield or something, I don't know. But I just wanted to pass that along and let you know that Alan's still active in doing that. He's going to continue on doing routine sampling and support initiatives along the lake where he can. And but we're just kind of in a pause right now with the COVID situation. It just can't really meet, but he's still out there doing things. So I just wanted to pass that along.
Okay, thank you. Somebody else had their hand up. Mike Sullivan, sorry.
I'm not sure when it's appropriate to bring this up because I don't know when the city intends to begin those discussions, but there is a 5-year review of the official plan at some point in the next year or year and a half. I believe it has to be done by the middle of 2023, but I could be wrong. And as a result of the Queen Tro things, I had to read the whole darn official plan. And there is an astounding amount of sprawl being planned in this city, particularly in the northwest, northeast, and to the west of the city. And I would hope that the Energy and Environment Committee could provide some guidance to the city on the environmental cost of sprawl and the need to revisit the official plan in a way that is much more environmentally conscious than when it was written in 1980 or whatever year it was originally put down. I don't know, and perhaps the councillors can tell me this, whether the secondary plans that are currently in place have developers lined up and therefore can't be changed. I don't know if the sprawl I saw is already locked in stone and can't be changed, but I would hope it can be, because we need to build in a different way than we built, than Stratford built in the last 30 years or so. And so I'm asking for advice from the councillors as to how to tie energy and environment into the process.
Yeah, I guess we need to know exactly when. I mean, from what I hear, we're going to do the OP review beginning of 2022. So I would say, I'm just trying to think of the best way that we could approach it as a group. Maybe we could put it on one of our agendas and everybody maybe not review all of it, but take a quick overview of it so we can have a good discussion and some recommendations that we'd like to make. There will also be public consultation. So, but I think it makes sense for us as a group to, since we're an advisory committee, to give our advice as a separate either motion or, you know, maybe we put together some kind of report that would get sent along. What do you think, Bonnie?
Well, to answer your question, you were asking about if somebody already has an application in. As far as I know, once an application's in, well, they can apply. Like before I was on council, which was 2006 when I started, I was going to meetings about the Southwest plan. That's going to be 12,300 people eventually living out McCarthy Road. And I think we're annexed all the way down to McCones Road, you know, by Home Hardware. Eventually, that's 50 years out probably, but I believe that, you know, they have the right to come in with subdivisions. And we have part of our, that it has to be inclusive. So they're building a subdivision. They can't just build single homes. They also have to build semis, townhouses, or apartments. So like if you look at the complex that's off of Olone right now, Brown Street and all that, you'll drive down, you'll see they've got semis, they've got singles, and right now they're building, I think it's 52 townhouses out the front there between you know, along that roadhouse drain, and I don't know, it's not called the roadhouse, but anyway, and the bush there. So that was passed. I'm pretty sure it was way before I was on council, so that it makes it more inclusive. So you don't end up with, I think in the past, it was this north-south split in the city saying, you know, so trying to make all areas inclusive. And, but I mean, and part of it is that they're also building, I know they came and wanted to go with 30-foot lots, and we turned that down. We said, we're not going less than 32 frontage, you know, because it just, although that still makes it a tighter green space, you're not using as much space. And you all know that what's happened on Ontario Street, now it's happening on where Sobeys is we get a lot of opposition in the city when we want to build higher than 4, because there's quite a few 4 in the city. And so I think those are things that we're gonna, I don't know if we're gonna address that. I know we're gonna talk about heritage, but I don't know what else we're gonna really address in the official plan. I did ask at one point, why do we have all the zoning if developers come and make changes? And it's very, I don't want to say minor, but you don't change the whole area. You just change as they come forward with a proposal. And that's how you look at it, right? Just like we did with Ontario Street. Does that answer that sort of, Mike?
Well, kind of. My concern is that if the sprawl is carved in stone, and that therefore there's no point in us making any recommendations about existing official plans, then it's kind of a wasted exercise for us to try and be involved in the review if the review is so carved in stone we can't get at some of the sprawl that's been defined by those secondary plans.
I don't know. I think if we decide to do that, the official plan, then any future plans that come in for development would have to follow that. So if we include in the plans that say out in the northwest area that we change the official plan and then you have to have, say, an apartment building or something instead of, you know, townhouses or semis or maybe plus, I think then, you know what I think might be a good idea? Why don't we have, if Taylor's available, to have him come to our January meeting and have a discussion with him, because he can know a lot of these answers that we're questioning, you know?
Okay, thank you. Jody?
Yeah, just, well, my thoughts, which hopefully are correct on what you're asking about, Mike. My understanding is that if the developer doesn't own that land and hasn't put in a proposal yet, that we wouldn't be locked into something except for what's in the official plan. So if we change the official plan, they would, if they didn't already submit something, that they would have to then follow the new rules. Now, whether they could go back and say, well, I bought the land 10 years ago because it was this designation at that time, they would have to go through an OP amendment to get their development forward. Maybe that's an argument they could use, but I doubt it.
They own the land. They own all the land. They bought it from Tour.
Who owns the land?
Mr. Tour owned that land. And so,
right. Well, I'm talking about in general, like all different places where we've put zoning in the official plan.
Okay.
So
nobody owns?
Yeah, like my understanding is that that's not locked in until the person puts forward a site plan proposal. And that's when we say, okay, well, this, and they can do sprawl because that's right now, we're like, yeah, go ahead. The other thing is what Bonnie was talking about is changing up what's allowed, like what's the density level. So yes, you can build out in this area, but it has to have a certain level of density. You must, like Bonnie was saying, if you need to get your density numbers up, you're going to have to put up a building as well as other things. And one thing that concerns me is that we need to also have a mixed use out there too, so it doesn't become sprawl. So we have places for people to shop, people to walk to places, hooked in well to transit, Those are all really important for the environment too, to get people out of cars. So that's another thing that I really like to look at is making sure that there's a mixed use rules in the official plan that would, allow us to have the walkable, bikeable communities as well.
Sounds like maybe there's a working group to work on this in the fall. Was it you, Mike, who circulated something about Hamilton saying no more sprawl? Was it Hamilton?
Yes.
Maybe it would be good to have somebody from there come and speak. But they just said no more sprawl, right? That's it.
You know, when I was attending these meetings before I was on council, people were getting up and saying, I don't want any grocery stores out here, and I don't want any ball diamonds because they've got big lights, and I don't want this and I don't want that. And I was shocked because I was thinking, what? Like, where Sobeys is, I brought that up, that they should have stores on the ground floor because I live in that area. We miss having a store in that area. I feel like I have to travel halfway across the city. I either have to go over to Foodland or all the way out to North Hills. And I find it hard that it's not there. Like the dollar store was there, and the Chinese place, and Dave's Diner. I mean, not Dave's Diner, but it doesn't matter. 2 gals in a pail. But I mean, the locals in our area, we miss all that. And so I think it's really important. Like maybe part of our official plan can be that if you're building an apartment building more than 4 high or 5 high, you have to have stores on the ground floor or something. I don't know. We'll find all that kind of stuff out, but I think it's important.
That's the type of thing you would put it in an official plan. And I just find it really interesting because somebody just last week was complaining to me about the condo developments out on Vivian Line. It's like they're too ugly, they're too dense, and I'm like, we can't put it anywhere. If people don't like it, they just don't. I don't get it, but.
Okay, I think Sammy, then Anita, and then Emily.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you said that it'll start discussions about kind of revisiting that in early 2022. So would that be something for our January meeting for us to kind of over the holiday break, skim over the plan and put together our suggestions, and then January we could kind of pass a motion or like discuss and then pass a motion, just so that once discussions have started, our input is in there?
Sounds good. Anita.
Yeah, my question goes back to what Jody was saying about advocating for multi-use purposes in the official plan. My question is there any way of ensuring that some of the development actually saves green space too, that there's places for parks and where we could, rehabilitate and put native species back in instead of having just crammed developments with no place for people to go or walk?
Right now, in new developments, they have to give us 5% green space. If you go up McCarthy Road, there's going to be, that huge development I was just talking about. You see the big space right behind the Rotary Complex, that big space, and then there's development. That'll be the cities, because each development, eventually the whole thing will be ours. So each development that goes in, I think there's been 7 or 8 now, they give us their 5% there. So that was part of the original development.
Well, right now, I think the federal government is trying to advocate for like 17% of areas protected. So, if we're ballparking 5% as green space or natural space, that's pretty darn low. And I think their targets for down the road are 25% by 2050. And so we have to, and it's not like there's room out there to conserve. We have to conserve that portion where we are, and we are in a city, and we should be having more green space.
Yeah, I think that's important for this discussion as well, because that can be part of the official plan, and also how stormwater is managed, like the stormwater ponds and so on, and using LID design the lid design, for stormwater management. All of that's going to be really important, even for mitigation, much less. Yeah, there's so many reasons to do that, but that also it could be created as green space with natural plants as well. So yeah, I think that all should be part of our discussion for sure.
That's good. Emily, excuse me. Did you have your hand up, Emily?
Yes. So a few months ago, when the city had adopted the climate action plan, they also adopted the One Planet Living principles as well. So when the 5-year plan is rewritten, does that mean that they'll be adopting those One Planet Living principles within the 5-year plan as well?
I hope so. Well, I don't know if the living principles are pretty general, but yes.
Yeah, but it does help have that, climate change lens.
And I think that's great for us to be able to, as an E&E group, to say, hey, you promised you're going to do this, so don't forget, like, this is the way we're going to do it.
Okay, Mike.
So in response to Sammy's suggestion that we review the plan, it's pretty dense, but you can get through it, and then put forward recommendations. I would go further and ask, and maybe I'll make a motion to this effect, that that the city formally consult with this committee on its redesign of the official plan, and that we begin by in January either getting somebody from the city to talk to us or just on our own discuss the official plan with a view to being formally consulted. And so I'll make that motion.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Is
Can I
that
make a comment?
Oh, yes.
So if, like, I think the word consultation it's very strong, and I think that's probably what you intend, but I think also just like engagement would be good too, if we can't support the consult, like to have city engage us so that we can remind them about these principles and stuff too. But I'm going to leave your motion the way it is and let it sit with them. Consult.
Okay. Oh, I did. Okay.
Included in the motion, does that include like the invitation of city staff or to our January meeting? Or is that a separate thing? We just invite them separately?
I think we could invite them to the January meeting. Doesn't have to be part of the motion, right? No. So I think we have suggested that we invite someone to the meeting in January. So the motion is on the floor. Any further discussion? Second, is that you, Jeff? Yes. Okay. All in favor? Okay. Opposed? Great. Another motion to put in motion. Wonderful. Lots of work to do in the new year. Sammy.
I was just wondering, Mike, if you could send that out to everybody, the official plan, if you had it.
Oh, yeah, I can. Or Bonnie, or anybody can. It's public document on the city website. It's hard to find, but it is there.
Casey,
Yeah.
why don't you do it?
I can do it, yes.
No, I said, why doesn't Casey just do it then? Because she can
I
get the
can forward
latest
it.
version.
And what about that article on Hamilton, which was really interesting? Did everybody get it? Yeah, okay, good. All right, another hand, Mike?
So I can't remember who responded to me. I think it might have been Craig. I asked if there are maps of flood lines based on atmospheric river type events. And I think it was Craig who responded, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember either. What was that?
So the question is, are there maps of Stratford that show how far up the Avon will go based on how much water is going to arrive in a 24-hour period or a 48-hour period? So
Yeah,
that
okay, I remember.
we can plan for catastrophe. The golf course was flooded the last 80 millimeter rainstorm, or 65, I guess.
Right.
The parks were flooded back here, but that's not that much water. That was over a whole day. I've experienced 113 millimeters in 2 hours in one part of Toronto. And what would that do and can Stratford prepare for something like that?
Yeah. Okay, I got it now. I think I passed the buck along to a guy named Chris Tasker, and I take it that Chris has not responded yet, but knowing Chris, he will, and be prepared for one heck of an explanation. But I will prod him again about that, because the answer is, I would think, yes, there's certainly floodplain mapping, that there are defined lines. I just don't know if each line is corresponds to X amount of rain, or whether it goes to 100-year flood line or not. I can't quite remember, but thanks for mentioning that again. I know Chris usually gets back to people on that, and I don't think he did. So I'll bug him about that again, because I kind of like to know myself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Jody?
Yeah, it's my understanding that it's Conservation Authority that in Ontario that has kept track of floodplain information. And I was reading an article today about the fact that BC doesn't have it set up that way. And was a big problem for them. So the person was saying, the article was making the point, well, in Ontario, at least we have the conservation authorities, but of course, Doug Ford's been cutting from that as well, and trying to take power away from the conservation authorities, which is, the worst direction to go. So.
I know that the city is, based on what I saw in the Queen Troe development proposal, the city is now using a 250-year event in terms of sewer treatment.
That's what I was just gonna say. We used to build to the 100-year, but we've been building to the 250. And that started just shortly after I got on council, I think. Especially after they had that huge flood over in Elgin Crescent area.
Okay,
So
good.
I don't know. Like I know out in McCarthy there where they're building, we had to use the floodplains to determine where they could, well, we didn't have to, but the planning department did, to determine how far they could build. And that's why we couldn't actually connect the two together unless they built a bridge. You could only have like a walking and cycling trail to connect the two because of the floodplain area. Unless they wanted to build a bridge. And of course, they didn't want to build a bridge. That'd be pretty expensive. And so we have to, confer that. And when they did the new subdivision out off of Romeo there to the right, we had to go through that there too, to make sure that, all those townhouses and semis they built out there, to ensure that they're not going to get flooded at some point. Now, I don't know if they were built to the 250 or if they were built to the 100. That's been going on for a while. So
I'm prepared to wait for the response. I just wanted to make sure it's still somewhere in the hopper, and it will inform our discussions on the official plan.
Yeah. I'll make sure I follow up on that, Mike. Thanks.
be very interesting. Yeah.
So did I see another hand up somewhere? No. Okay. There's no further business. I just had a question, Casey, about whatever was left in the budget that just gets rolled back. There's only a couple $100 left, I think, that we didn't allocate.
I think it was just shy of $500 we had left last month, and I think the only other bill to come in is the gifts for the last
For the webinar.
webinar.
So we have about, and that, so it'll just go back into the kitty.
Yep.
Unless there's some other use for it. Okay. Any further comments, anyone? Upcoming event is still the Tree Power event in April, which we hope will happen. And the next meeting is January 6th at 4. And this is my last meeting. So thank you. Happy holidays, everybody. And if you need
Bravo,
help,
Anna,
I'll be here. Huh?
it was great working with you.
Yeah.
It was. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank
It
you.
was-
You're gonna be missed. I wish you were staying on.
I'll be out here. I'm not leaving. I'm here now. I
Did
know.
you didn't reapply? No?
I didn't, for a number of reasons, which,
Yeah,
but,
you don't have to reveal, but okay.
I did 4 years. I mean, I still very committed to continuing work on energy and environment. I just thought I'd take a pause. You can always come back too, as Mike Dorna has. Anyway, thank you. It's been a real pleasure. Happy holidays.
Need
Bye.
a motion to adjourn then.
Oh, sorry. I'm no good at this.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn, anybody?
I think Mike
Em-
just had his hand up.
Oh, another? Yes?
No, it was just to say thank you to Anna.
Okay.
It was, and for those of you, I tried to encourage her to come back as the chair of the carbon reduction working group, even when she's not there as a citizen appointee, but she said no.
But you know, when you suggest things like that, it may be something that, you know, the suggester could take on. Just saying. Anyway, okay, did I have a motion to adjourn? Emily,
Motion to adjourn.
and a second? Jeff, thanks very much. Happy holidays. everyone.
Night.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Holidays.